Well, good morning and welcome back to my intermediate writing course. Professor Kent Lee here. First, a little notice. My apologies for uploading the wrong version of the book. I just posted an announcement Monday evening, September 6th, saying, oops, I had the wrong version of the book up. I fixed it and I uploaded a new version of the book and the syllabus, the corrected course syllabus. So as of 5 o'clock on Monday, September 6th, they're there, corrected versions. So you need to get the corrected version. Sorry about that. I had a computer problem and the versions of my files got messed up due to a computer problem. I'm in the process of upgrading my computer and some equipment, and it's kind of difficult. It's a very complex upgrade I'm doing myself, hence the problems. So the correct version of the book will of course also have the syllabus that matches it. In the correct version of the book, definitions, the definition section will be chapter 2.3, section 2.3. 2.4 will be topic sentences, which we will cover next class, next week, and there will be a Google form assignment for that. So 2.4 is topic sentences, and 2.5 is a new section on writing emails. In the next video, I will tell you about the email writing assignment. So that's how you tell it's the proper version of the book. I hope you didn't print it. If you don't print it yet, if you're going to print it, you can probably take it to a print shop and print it off for about $1. But hold off on that if you're going to do that. Again, there's always the slight chance that around midterm I might go, oh, okay, I'm going to add some stuff. Here it is again. So in the new book, section 2.5 will be about email, and my next video will cover email, and I'll give you an email assignment, an email writing assignment. So today we're going to talk about definitions, definition paragraphs and use of definitions. You might have learned about definition paragraphs in a previous writing course, but I want to talk about those in terms of why we use them in longer essays. And they're rhetorical functions. So let's talk about the word rhetoric and rhetorical. Now the word rhetoric in English often today has kind of a negative, or what we call pejorative meaning. Pejorative is a nice fancy word for negative meaning or implication. It often refers to words or speaking that's meaningless, insincere, dishonest, like in politics. So the politician is full of rhetoric. Congress or Parliament, they're all full of rhetoric. They don't mean anything that they say. They're liars, insincere, they're hypocrites. It has a negative meaning, oftentimes in general colloquial English. Colloquial is another word you should know. Informal spoken style English. Conversational style English is colloquial English. So colloquial is informal, conversational. It's an important word. But in traditional academic usage, the word rhetoric has a very different meaning. It's basically persuasive writing or persuasive speaking. So when we talk about rhetoric, we're talking about persuasive writing or speaking, and rhetorical, like rhetorical devices. And so maybe in your English courses, you'll come across this, rhetorical devices, rhetorical functions, rhetorical language. That has to do with persuasive speaking and writing. And it's actually a whole area of study and goes back to ancient Greece and Rome, when professional speakers studied and discovered the principles of rhetoric so that they could train scholars, philosophers, and politicians in public speaking, the art of public speaking or public writing, persuasive writing. So we're going to talk about definitions as a rhetorical device and their function. So I asked you to do a Google form about section what is now 2.3. If you had an older version of the book, 2.4, I think. In the updated version I just posted, section 2.3 on page 17, called Defining Terms. And sometimes in college writing and academic writing, sometimes writers need to provide definitions. What kind of definitions work rhetorically, persuasively? What kinds are okay or not? And I had you comment on these. So let's go over the assignment. Number one, a theory So the person is defining theory. A theory, by definition, means something that has not been proven. Thus, the theory of evolution is not proven, shouldn't be accepted as factual. Is that a good sentence? Absolutely not. It is wrong, it's misleading, it's a fallacy. A fallacy is a misuse of logic, a rhetorical fallacy. Bad logic, often used to deceive people or to present a really weak argument and make it sound better. Like we say in English, it's like putting lipstick on a pig. It's a bad idea and you're trying to make it sound good. This is wrong. It's a fallacy. It's a semantic fallacy, playing with word meanings. Yeah, in colloquial English, theory might mean that. Like, oh, my theory is that my English professor is an alien from another planet because he's very strange. Okay, that could be a theory. My theory is that Joe Biden is not going to run again he's not going to run for re-election in 2024 because of his age and his health. That's my theory. Well, it's like a guess, a conjecture, a hypothesis. It's more like what we would call a hypothesis in academic English. In academic English, a theory is something different. So to say that the theory of evolution isn't proven, that's just wrong, that's misleading. It is proven. A theory can be proven. So number 2 is actually a correct definition. Number 1 is dishonest or shows that the writer doesn't know what he or she is talking about. Number 2 is actually correct. In colloquial English, a theory is like a conjecture. In science and in academic English, just something else. In science and other academic fields, a theory is an explanatory framework. It's a complex set of ideas, or it's a set of ideas that go together very nicely and they explain something, and it's an explanatory framework. So a law is something different. So it's not the case that a theory gets proven and then becomes a law. That's wrong. That's not how things work. Whether it's science or psychology or whatever. A law is something simple. You probably learned the law of gravity in high school or middle school. That's a law because you can put it in a short, simple statement or an equation or a formula. That's a law. It's something simple, a simple statement, and it's generally true. A theory can be proven true. Some theories have been proven, many have been proven true, some are not yet proven true, some have been disproven. So a theory does not have to do with whether it's been proven true or not. A theory is simply an explanatory framework. The theory of evolution is a complex framework. You can break it down to maybe 4 or 5 kind of basic statements, each of which has a lot of meaning, but together they explain the variety of life forms on this planet. Simple and complex life forms, why they're similar, why they're different. It's a scientific framework that's designed to explain the variety of life forms. It does not explain how life first began. That would be a different theory. That would be something else. So there's a theory of gravity, there's the law of gravity, but then there's a theory of gravity, which comes from Einstein, that explains, well, how does this gravity stuff work? What is it? What causes it? Newton didn't have an explanation for that. He just came up with the law, which was really cool. That was a big advancement. He couldn't explain what causes it, but Einstein came up with sort of an explanation. That's theory of gravity, gravitational theory. You can't say, oh, it's not proven, I don't believe it, I'm just going to jump off this building and I'm going to fly. I don't believe in your gravity. You know, you can't do that. Don't do that. Germ theory. It's actually a bit more complex than that, but it's about how germs, microbes, bacteria, viruses cause diseases that can be transmitted from person to person or through a community and through unclean objects. Germ theory. You can just say, oh, I don't believe in this germ theory, I'm not going to get vaccinated. Ha ha. Right. A lot of people are doing that in the US and they are dying as a result. Don't do that. So 2 is correct. It is a correct definition of a theory, and one rhetorical function of a definition might be to provide a precise definition of a term that is used differently maybe in academic or scientific fields. Yes, this word theory is used in a somewhat different way than in colloquial English. So one function of a definition is to provide a specialized definition. A definition of a word that's used in a special way in science or in a particular field. You could do the same thing for, as we'll see later, for like language, linguistics, and such. And this in turn is maybe going to try to clarify. So the writer is trying to clarify. He's trying to maybe correct misunderstandings. So a second function of a definition might be to correct a misunderstanding of an idea. So this is providing a specialized definition, not a dictionary definition, but a specialized definition. And it's also designed to correct maybe a wrong assumption. And those are a couple of rhetorical functions of definitions when they are needed, when they are called for. And this might be the beginning of an essay about what a theory is, or why the theory of evolution is considered true in science and in biology, or the philosophical nature of theories and truth in science, or something like that. So it's setting the foundation for more detailed discussion of an academic issue. Okay, number 3. A traffic light is a device that turns red as your car approaches. Obviously not a real definition. This is kind of a joke, a humor. If you're a comedian, yeah, you might use this kind of definition. If you're a humorist, a humor writer, a joke teller, performer, an actor, whatever. But probably not in a college paper. It's not a serious definition. It's a joke. It's sarcasm, sort of a silly joke. Number 4, Webster's dictionary defines courage as a quality or spirit that enables a person to face difficulty without fear. My life experiences and how I handle my circumstances exemplify courage, which is why I'm applying for the scholarship. Okay, this is boring. Don't do this. Dictionary definitions. No. This is very middle school or high schoolish, not for college papers. A specialized or technical definition, like in number 2, is fine. Number 4 is not. One principle of academic writing is that it should be informative. It should at some level be persuasive somehow, but it should also be informative. You should not be telling people something obvious. A reader is going to go tell me something I don't know. So this is immediately going to sound boring, and it's going to sound like the person didn't put any thought into it. This is like impulse writing. Oh, I've got a paper due, or I've got that scholarship application due tomorrow. Gosh, I'll just write, and you just do some really thoughtless, careless impulsive writing. This is bland, this is boring, this is not informative, this does not pass for college writing. So don't do dictionary definitions like this, please. Number 5, here we have another technical definition. Phenomenology, nice big word. It's the study of mental phenomena, particularly consciousness and how we experience consciousness. And this was an area of philosophy and has been an area of philosophy for a long time. It's been kind of a philosophical puzzle, and more recently in neuroscience, brain science, some scientists have started to think more about this. Because scientifically, we don't have a good theory or a scientific definition or explanation of consciousness, human consciousness, what it is and how it works, what makes us conscious, what makes our brain, why is it that we are self-aware in a way that's different from, your housefly or cricket. Why? It's a really hard question. If you can come up with an answer, you'll be really famous. Trust me. This is a big scientific question. This is where we could use some breakthroughs. We could use an Einstein for this problem, because it's a really hard problem. What is human consciousness? What makes it? I mean, how does your brain is just a bunch of brain cells, neurons. Well, how does consciousness arise from all these cells and electrical signals so that we're self-aware and we think and we have this intelligence and all that? If you can answer that, you could maybe get a Nobel Prize. I promise you. Big problem. So it's an interesting area of research, and it's an important one, and there are philosophical and psychological and neuroscientific theories on it, but nothing really well developed or proven yet. So this is a technical term. Even a lot of college students probably don't know this term unless they're philosophy majors or neuroscience majors or psychology majors. Yeah, a lot of people, even educated college people, would not know this term. So this is a technical definition which is maybe required at the beginning of an essay, and this could go on to an essay talking about philosophical aspects of consciousness or neuroscientific and psychological possible neuroscience explanations of consciousness, or philosophical problems related to consciousness and such. So this could be the beginning of a philosophy paper, maybe a neuroscience paper at a college level. Number 6, a fork is defined as an instrument for putting dead animals into the mouth. Again, this is a comedian definition, a comedy definition, a joke, not something you would use in a college paper. 7. This is hard to read, isn't it? I can't remember where I found this. This is kind of old style. Innate means natural or inherent. Okay, so something that you're born with. You have innate characteristics, innate abilities, perhaps. Like you can stand up, you can walk, you can learn a language as a child. Those are innate abilities. But then innate ideas? What is that? What's an innate idea? Something we're born with? Are we born with ideas? Gosh. Either this person doesn't understand psychology or this person is smoking some interesting stuff. I'll let you know what it is. Innate ideas, greatness of one's country, superiority of one's civilization. I kind of understand what the writer is talking about, but this is so sloppy and so imprecise. I think they're kind of playing and misusing words. Like innate is something fairly specific, something you're born with. You're not born with ideas. There are natural tendencies, like to believe in how your country is superior, how your personal matters are important, things like that. But those aren't ideas that you're born with. There are psychological explanations for why we fall into those ways of thinking, and it's too complex to get into this video. But this is kind of a bad definition. It sounds good because it's written in a formal style, but it's really imprecise. They're playing with words, innate ideas. What is that? You're not born with ideas. Maybe the writer could have chosen a different word that would work better in this context, not innate. Not innate ideas, but these are more like certain psychological biases that produce these kinds of ideas or concepts. So the person is oversimplifying things and being really sloppy and imprecise, and I don't like this. Aside from, the language is just vague and poorly used. Number 8, the dictionary definition of treason is such and such, and clearly this man's behavior fits these criteria and he deserves to be removed from office. Dictionary definition again. Yeah, we all know what treason is. You don't need to tell us a dictionary definition. This is boring. This is not communicating anything new. Now, what you could do in this case, look what the laws say about treason in your country. If you're talking about a particular case, a particular politician who deserves to be accused of treason. I'm thinking of one particular famous example in my country. You can probably guess who I'm thinking about. He's out of office now. I'm just waiting for him to go to jail. Can't wait. You would want to find a proper legal definition. This is a very imprecise dictionary definition. If you're talking about, should this person be arrested and sent to jail for treason, you'd want to build your case on a specific legal definition. Okay, how is treason legally defined? And you can look up probably some famous old law in your country that formally precisely defines treason, or maybe there isn't one. You might be surprised. Maybe it's not really defined by the laws of some countries. Maybe it is. But you would want a precise legal definition and then explain exactly how he violated those laws and how his case meets the specific criteria or standards of treason. Number 9, this is a definition of linguistics. So again, this is maybe communicating to not so much English majors, but maybe a general college-educated audience, people who don't necessarily know what linguistics is. People might think, oh, it's just learning languages. No, that's not. It's the formal study of the structure of language and how it works in the mind, or maybe how it functions socially or neurologically or something like that. So this is 1, correcting wrong assumptions, and 2, providing a more precise definition. It's about language in the mind, structure, and how children have the structure and they use it to learn their first language, and how we might learn a second language when we're older, like many of you learning English as a second language. So this might provide the basis for an essay that maybe then goes on to explain, well, why should you study linguistics, or defining a particular area of linguistics like syntax or phonology, or the value of linguistics, or it could maybe an essay explaining why we need a linguistics program at this college or university, or why the linguistics program deserves more funding. It could be used as a specific, to develop a specific argument for the value of linguistics, or clarifying what linguistics is for different reasons. So it's going to be a good definition. It's going to be precise, formal definition for a particular purpose, maybe arguing for something. Why we need a linguistics program, why we should fund our linguistics programs better in this country, or something like that. Or why you should study linguistics, or how linguistics could be applied for teaching languages in the classroom, something like that. Number 10, philosophical skepticism. So again, it's defining a term in a specialized way, a specialized definition. There's skepticism like, oh, I don't believe you, I don't believe what she's saying. But philosophical skepticism is a special term in philosophy, and this might sound strange to you, but it's an important tool in philosophy for attacking a number of problems. How do you prove that, well, this world exists? That's an important philosophical question. And so by playing with skepticism, it's an important way of developing maybe your methods or techniques of, defining or proving that something exists. How do I know the world exists? How do I know you exist? How do I know this camera exists? And it's not just my imagination that's producing all of these things. It's an important question of philosophy, and how you maybe deal with that is then going to be the basis for dealing with other philosophical questions. How do you prove something in science? How do you prove something in other areas of study? How do you know that something is true or not? These are all related to the problem of skepticism and philosophy. So this would be making a case for the importance of skepticism, why it's valuable, even though it sounds crazy, yet it's a valuable tool. What it is and its function, its purpose, and such. Or maybe it's going to develop as an essay, maybe a proof for a particular area of knowledge. Well, this is how we can then prove something in science, starting with the tools of skepticism. 11, greenwashing. So this is a good specific definition. This is a new term. It's mainly used in business and ecology. So it's a specialized term, and it would not be known to people, in other fields or in the general public outside of business. So it's defining an important term and explaining deceptive, dishonest practices by businesses who try to look environmentally friendly or green. So This might be part of an essay about, well, how companies are deceiving you and making you think that they are being good to the environment when they are really not. And again, this could be for a rhetorical function of correcting wrong assumptions, as well as defining a specialized term. And this is sometimes used in, these kinds of rhetorical functions might be used when you need to define a term in a special way. There are a lot of terms that maybe get used in specialized ways in different academic fields. Think about self-esteem. Well, that actually has a fairly precise psychological definition in it. There might be different theories of psychology that define it differently. Or motivation, like how's your motivation towards studying? There are at least a couple of different major psychological theories that have slightly different definitions of motivation. So sometimes you need to define something so you can study it. What is language learning? What does it mean to learn a language? You may need to define it in a very specific way so that you can do research on it. So defining terms this can be a rhetorical method or strategy for various reasons: disproving false assumptions, correcting false ideas, providing a specialized definition of a word that's used in a different way, in a unique way, and maybe arguing for the importance of something, and as such, the importance of linguistics, for example. These are some functions, rhetorical functions of definitions. So I asked you to look at one or two samples then, section 2.3.2, Psycholinguistics. Let's talk about this one first. What's the definition of psycholinguistics? As this paragraph will explain, it's using psychology research methods for studying language in the human mind and the human brain. That's psycholinguistics. Why? Because some people, even in say language education, have some wrong ideas about psycholinguistics. They think, oh, it's the study of language learning, acquisition, like it's the same thing as applied linguistics. Applied linguistics is the study of language learning and teaching. And think, oh, it's the same thing. No, it's not. There's a psycho in there, and means psychology. So there has to be something psychological involved, some kind of psychology study, like psychology research methods. Yeah, there's a lot of overlap. There's a lot of overlap between psycholinguistics and applied linguistics, but they're not the same thing. It's psycholinguistics if you're using some kind of research tools that help you to get at what's going on in the mind or the brain of a person who's learning a language, or who's speaking a language, or who's reading in the language. And that's what psycholinguistics is. And this might be part of a larger essay on the value of psycholinguistics and why you should know some psycholinguistics if you want to study applied linguistics, if you want to become a language teacher. This is what you need to know about psycholinguistics. It might help you if you're teaching, it might be part of a theoretical discussion. Might be a theoretical discussion about language learning and how language is learned in the brain or the mind to make a particular point about language learning. So it's going to serve some kind of function like this, defining a term that's used in a specialized way for a particular persuasive purpose. I'm persuading you about the value of psycholinguistics and why you should take this course in psycholinguistics if you want to become an English teacher, and this will help you, for example. The next one is actually a full essay, and it's a bit more complicated. It's called What is Crime? Have you ever committed a crime? You don't have to share, actually, with me. You don't have to tell me. Feel free to post comments if you want to confess, but no. Well, maybe a lot of us have, because this talks about misdemeanors and felonies. So let's clarify that. What those terms mean, I think they're defined in the footnotes in the book. You might have committed a misdemeanor. That's a very minor crime. It could be, now there are different levels and classes of misdemeanors. Maybe the lowest level is something like, a police officer gives you a ticket for speeding. that technically is a misdemeanor. I got a couple of those when I was in high school, when I was learning to drive. So yeah, I have committed crimes. I once drove too fast or went through a red light or something like that. Did that once or twice in my younger years. That technically is an extremely minor crime, a misdemeanor. It's kind of a very low-level misdemeanor. Then you have kind of slightly more serious misdemeanor crimes. And these are things that you don't go to jail for. Maybe you have a minor fine, like I had to pay $30 for my traffic ticket. But slightly more serious ones might be if you possess small amounts of drugs. It's small enough for personal use, like marijuana, cocaine. Yeah, that's a misdemeanor. You probably won't go to jail if it's a really small amount. If it's like a one-time dose, I don't recommend that, by the way. It's not good for you or your brain necessarily, or it may be illegal. But in Western countries, those are misdemeanors. Then felonies are more serious crimes, like murder, blowing up a building, or robbing a bank. I don't recommend you do those things. Those are felonies. Theft, arson, setting fire to your house. So what is crime? This person is basically making a case that it's a legal concept. So it's not a civil concept or social concept. There are certain things that are kind of what we consider wrong or immoral, but you're not going to get arrested for it, but you will get sued. So it's a civil case or a lawsuit, like someone can sue you. Now, there are some things that are technically illegal, but they're not really enforced by the police. So if I have a copyright and then someone steals what I created, I could sue the person. I'm not going to go to the police, but I would sue the person. It's a civil kind of case. So it's sort of a crime, but it would be done in a civil case, a lawsuit, civil court, not a criminal court, no police or anything. But then there are things like, things like divorce, and if maybe the husband was cheating on the wife, that would be done in a civil court. Those are not crimes. There's nothing criminal involved there. So that's not really crime. It's not really a social. It's not really a moral thing like cheating on one's wife, which is bad, of course. But that's not really a crime. It would be something that is actually harmful to society, causes actual physical harm to people or damage to society. So the writer is then explaining kind of a precise legal definition of crime, so a technical definition, and also correcting false assumptions. It's not moral stuff like cheating on the spouse. It's not so much minor things like traffic tickets and things like that, but it's more like stuff that actually is harmful to society and harmful in a real way to people. So it's a legal concept, and he clarifies that in the very last paragraph. It's a legal concept. It's a legal violation that involves criminal law, like police and courts, and going to jail or paying a big fine and things like that. But it's a complex issue because there are some social and legal issues involved in what we define as crime, and what one country decides is illegal and not illegal in another country, and things like that. So those are the kinds of purposes of definitions in essays. They're often used to clarify things, provide a specialized technical definition of a word, even a word that might have a different meaning in a particular context, and then to maybe argue a point based on that, why you should study linguistics, or why you should be careful about how you use the word crime, especially in discussing political and social issues. For example, you should be careful about how you use that word. You should be careful about how you use the word theory when you're talking about scientific and academic issues, and things like that. So those are functions of definitions, and next week's topic on topic sentences will kind of build on this, because sometimes these are topic sentences in essays. So topic sentence is the main idea of a paragraph, and it's kind of like the thesis. The thesis is the main idea of an entire essay, the main point or argument of an entire essay. So you'll have a little Google form assignment about topic sentences due, I think, over the weekend. And then an email assignment coming up, which I'll talk about a bit in the next video. So the email assignment, I'll explain more later. So if you have any questions about this stuff, post them in the LMS. Be helpful to others. And again, for the Google form assignments, I will grade these based on how much effort you put into it. Did you really address all of these questions? All the sample definitions that I went through, all of those. And then one of the two samples, the psycholinguistics example or the crime example, you should have talked about one of those at least in your homework. So next video we'll talk about email and the email assignments and writing emails. So until then, I'll see you hopefully in a few minutes. Goodbye.